Stab 2, who want to do that? Sequels suck. Boo, hiss, get off the stage, you're not funny. Oh, please, by definition alone, they're inferior films. And depending on the franchise, there is a lot of truth to this. I'm John Renton with the retro review of Scream 2. If you're a new subscriber, first of all, welcome. Hi, enjoy the madness. You may not know that I'm a big fan of horror movies. The entire horror genre, subgenres, it doesn't matter. It could be absolutely iconic, something I could watch over and over, or it could be some of the worst dreck ever put on film, like Satan's Little Helper or Nightmare Man. Just two examples of films that should have never been fucking made. But this is about the Scream franchise, for it is a franchise, because they've done 4 of these and they're going to do a 5th one next year. Because they're trying to get more blood out of this goddamn turnip that didn't have a lot of blood left in it by this point. And I retro-reviewed the 4th Scream last October, and despite its flaws, was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. It was a bit of a return to form, and they had more fun with it. And then I reviewed the 1st Scream, which I absolutely loved. Did a long video and just praised it so much. Yes, the dated fashions, cellular telephone. Boy, that made everybody feel old. But, you know, all the stuff, the technology and everything, and the in-references, and the fact that they made fun of slashers and other horror movies while crafting its own well-made slasher. And Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson did a really good job there. And it was just a great, perfect storm of cast and just great writing and just great stuff. And it hit every goddamn note it needed to. While yes dated, it's still a whole lot of fun. I fucking love the 1st Scream, and it's absolutely goddamn great. And then, I can only imagine how the pitch went from the studio, because the 1st Scream was wildly successful on a small budget. Hey Wes, hey Kevin, do you think you can direct and write another Scream movie? Why, yeah, we could do that. We could, get together and do something really good. And they say, great. Okay, so, this one did really well. We want to have it out by December of 97. Okay, but that's not going to give us a lot of time to do something really, really good. We're going to have to hack it out, make it a cash grab, and try to do something good, but you're really giving us time constraints. And they say, well, we don't care. We just want a rush job because we want to get more money, more blood out of this turnip. That's the only explanation I can come up with for why Scream 2 had its moments. It did have its moments. It is a well-made sequel, but you can see the cracks starting to form. Now, don't get me wrong. I like Scream 2 a hell of a lot more than I like Scream 3 because Jesus fucking Christ, that movie was all over the goddamn place. This was a prime example of a studio just wanting to cash in quickly, and there's nothing wrong with that. There are plenty of horror franchises that started with the first one being pretty damn good, maybe the second one being pretty good, and then they just kept rushing out stuff, and then the timeline got all messed up and everything, and, well, at least this one had its moments. My problem is it almost seemed like it was trying to force its way to be just like the 1st Scream instead of kind of trying to go off and be its own thing. And it did a whole bunch of references to what happened in Woodsboro and Sydney and her friends surviving and stuff like that. And they're at Windsor College. And the gang gets back together, the remaining gang. And they're all trying to, do their own thing and everything. And Sydney's trying to put her life back together after, all that shit happened. And her boyfriend at the time and one of his friends and also her friend decided to try and kill her, but also kill just about everybody. So you have Neve Campbell coming back. Neve Campbell, by the way, is fucking ageless and goddamn beautiful. And I don't even mean from right here. She looks goddamn great even now. You had Elise Neal playing her friend Hallie, or Haley, depending on, who's pronouncing it. Yeah, Cotton Weary, Lee Schreiber gets a bit more of, a run here and actually gets some good lines. Kevin Williamson even interviews him in a brief cameo. You have Cece, Sarah Michelle Gellar, who was in one of 2 horror movies in 97. I Know What You Did Last Summer and this. And she meets the same fate in both movies. She doesn't survive, in other words. Mickey, Timothy Oliphant, who I used to call Timothy Elephant because I just can't pronounce names sometimes. He, crafted a pretty damn good career for himself. Jamie Kennedy plays Randy, and, the wise-cracking guy that wants to get with Sydney. I mean, to be fair, who wouldn't want to get with Neve Campbell? Jesus fucking Christ. Derek, played by Jerry O'Connell, who is Sid's boyfriend in college. Gail has returned. Gail Weathers, Courtney Cox, and Dewey, who has a bit of a limp because he got stabbed and everything. But he sometimes will walk with a limp. Other times he won't walk with a limp. It's a little bit inconsistent. Debbie Salt, Laurie Metcalf, who is Jackie and Roseanne. And a terrific, supporting role here. She doesn't get a lot of time, but when she does, she makes it work. And tons of others. Joshua Jackson, who was in Dawson's Creek, as well as Urban Legend, which I did retro review all those as well. Heather Graham, Omar Epps, Rebecca Gayheart before her, vehicular homicide. Remember that? Remember when she did that? Boy, maybe don't drive like an idiot. Portia de Rossi, David Warner, sudden onset David Warner, just out of nowhere, Tori Spelling, Jada Pinkett Smith, and many others. And it's set 2 years again after the Woodsboro, incidents. And, well, somebody doesn't want Sydney to move on. She's being harassed by phone calls because the movie Stab has come out. It's based on Gail Weathers' book. Well, Gail's got the Woodsboro murder, stuff like that. There's all these people trying to get their fingers in the Woodsboro pie and trying to get their fingers in Sydney's pie. This got a little bit weird. And somebody doesn't want her to forget her past, but who could it possibly be? It's two people. In case you haven't seen the movie, sorry, it's been over 24 years, or just about 24 years, two people. And the explanation for it, for one of them makes sense. For the other, it's just like, wow, they really had no idea what they were doing. So as far as sequels go, though, I will say this has more positives than negatives. There is a good feel, like there's some camaraderie among the characters, but also this feels stretched out. There are some moments where it's like it felt like they were trying to extend this movie when they could have probably made it 5 to 10 minutes shorter and maybe accomplish the same damn thing. Omar Epps and Jada Pinkett Smith, their characters are in the theater, and they're watching Stab. She doesn't like horror movies. She's wisecracking everything and shouting out stuff during the movie, even though everybody's in their Ghostface outfits. And Ghostface, of course, makes his return. Omar Epps goes to use the bathroom, and then hears a voice in a bathroom stall, and he puts his ear to it. And let me tell you right now, nothing good comes from sticking your ear to a bathroom stall wall. Trust me on this, because you either get stabbed through a makeshift glory hole, or you hear things that you shouldn't hear. Like about to get stabbed by a knife through a makeshift glory hole. And man, Omar Epps doesn't survive, because if you get stabbed in the ear, generally by a big knife like that, you're not going to. And then Jada Pinkett Smith thinks it's her boyfriend, but he's got the mask on. And then, the movie's going on, everything. Heather Graham's playing the Casey character, from the first one that Drew Barrymore played in. Jada gets stabbed. Well, she gets stabbed repeatedly. Well, they think it's part of the show. They don't see the blood because the madness is going on, and it's mob mentality. Stab her, stab her. And then she screams. They're like, screams. Now, the one cool part is everybody's taking their masks off. Like, holy shit, somebody's actually getting killed. While we're watching a movie based on people that got fucking killed. Sometimes theater audiences are stupid. I worked at a theater for about 5.5 years. I can vouch for that. And she dies in a very stagey way, laying down and all that stuff. And then we get the Scream 2 graphic. And then Sydney's a lot more self-aware and has caller ID. And she has her friend Hallie. And Hallie wants her to pledge to a sorority sister house. And no, it is not like Sorority Row, which I really enjoyed reviewing, and you could check that out on the movie reviews playlist if you'd like. But there's the film class stuff. I'm not going to go through every single scene on this, because not as many of the lines are as iconic or as memorable, but it is what it is. Film class are talking about sequels, like, Terminator 2 far better than the first, Aliens. You got a hard-on for Cameron, Sarah Michelle Gellar said. Hard-on. And they mention all these, and they're like, that isn't good. And Timothy Olyphant's character, Mickey, says, I got it, The Godfather Part 2, which everybody agrees on. To be fair, The Godfather Part 2 is pretty goddamn good and might eclipse the original. What sequel, by the way, do you think eclipsed the original? Doesn't matter if it's horror, doesn't matter otherwise. Leave your answers in the comments, please. So Randy is like, people get stabbed and everything and all that stuff. I don't want to go back to that. And he still wants to get with Sid. Again, who can blame him? Sid can't, and she's with Derek. And I will say that one criticism I have is the soundtrack for the first movie was pretty damn iconic. The soundtrack for this movie leaves a lot to be desired. Marco Beltrami's score actually is the only good part of it. Now they have Red Right Hand, and some of the songs aren't bad, but a lot of it, I'm sorry, I don't think the rap really fit. I just don't. At least some of them make him scream. Na. Whew. That song was something. Thank God they only played a little bit of that at the very end credits when hopefully everybody had left. But yeah, the soundtrack outside of, again, Marco Beltrami's score, it is not all that good. But the way he conducts stuff, it still has that punch to it. Gale's on the case again. Dewey arrives. The gang is back together, and they're trying to find out who the fuck the killer is. Dewey says that, well, Sydney, you probably know who the killer is. He's probably in your life already. Or they. Or she. We don't know. I'm hoping that they actually knew who the killer was, and they just didn't suddenly write out hack job like, shit, we need to figure out who the killer is. And let's just throw these two in there. Let's have one with a good backstory and one that it's just like, whatever. Anyway, Gail tries to get Sydney to talk to Cotton, and then she gets slapped because Cotton's like, well, I'm trying to put my life back together. To be fair, I understand Sydney's point of view, but I also understand Cotton wanted to tell his, his side of the story because he got framed for something he didn't commit. He did, fuck Sydney's mother, but she wanted to. It was an affair. It didn't lead to murder, at least not him murdering her. Sarah Michelle Gellar is the sorority sister that is all, sober and everything and at home and in a sorority house that apparently they don't want to bother turning the lights on. And she's watching on TV, but meanwhile, Sydney and her friend are at this sorority party that's all crazy and everything. And everybody's just having a whole big old party. And she's on her phone, because they're using the house phone. And she says, she thinks it's her boyfriend that's calling. Oh, it's her boyfriend Ted. No, it's not. It's like, who's Ted? She's talking to him and everything. It's like, she's like, who are you calling for? What if I said you? What if I said goodbye? Why do you always answer your question with a question? I'm inquisitive. And then, oh, do you want to die tonight, CC? Typical stuff. And then she's talking to the friend. She's talking to campus security. That doesn't work. And then she said, a friend says, well, just set the alarm and everything. And she says, Ted, you're going to wish it was Ted. Don't forget to set the alarm. I can't do the ghost face voice. I apologize. And then she gets chased up the stairs and then gets thrown through, a door window, which let me tell you right now, being thrown through a window is such a pain in my life. Such an absolute pain. Window pain is the pun here. And man, I just hit it so goddamn on the nose. So, the sorority sisters say we like to keep it all in the family, and given how some sorority houses act, that kind of sounds about right. And then they're at this house. They figure this out. The killer's suddenly there with Sydney. Says, "Hello, Sydney. Remember me?" She's like, why don't you show your face, you fucking coward? My pleasure. And then he's there, or maybe it's one of the killer. Who the fuck knows what killer it is? And Derek goes back in the house to try and get the killer, and he gets stabbed. He gets cut, but it's all part of the plan. He didn't have anything, badly cut. It bled, but no major veins or arteries, nothing that wouldn't heal. And they suspect it could possibly be him. And then Mickey tips his hat early, and I don't think some people picked up on it. At least no characters in the film did, because every viewer would have. He says he just needs to realize that the 90s is no time to be a hero. Why would anyone go back in that house anyways? Unless he talked to Derek, or unless the police told him that Derek went back in the house, how would he know that? And we didn't get to see Mickey interrogated, so obviously Mickey was the one doing the killing there. And then Gail and Dewey realize that the killer is targeting people with the same names as the original victims. Maureen, and then Stevens, and Cece. Oh wait, her name's Casey. Somebody's duplicating Woodsboro. We are on the case to take care of this. And then Sydney wants to keep Derek safe, so they kind of, she kind of splits from him, which makes sense. You want to keep somebody you love safe. And also maybe she's like, hey, wait a second, this guy's going to die. We need to extend the plot. Let me do that. And Debbie keeps her own investigation going. Debbie Salt, that isn't an actual name. It's Billy's mother, by the way. It's Billy's mother, in case you didn't realize that, in case you forgot the movie. Two detectives are following Sydney around because she's got protection, because that always works. The police protection worked so well in the first one, this is going to work even better. And then Derek sings, I Think I Love You, So What Am I So Afraid Of? Top Gun, Tom Cruise, Top Gun, 1986. A lot of movie references in this one, but also kind of shoehorned. The first one felt a little bit organic. Ridiculous, but organic. This one felt like we're just going to shove movie references in, because that's what everybody loved. And then he gives her his, letters, his Phi Beta Cat, whatever the hell the goddamn, his sorority brother letters. And you never do that, because he gets targeted later. Tori Spelling and Luke Wilson in Stab. Tori Spelling, by the way. It would have been interesting if it had been, former WWE, WCW talent Tori Wilson. But Tori Spelling and Luke Wilson having, just a little bit of a scene, doing the Sydney Billy thing about, oh, my mother left me, that kind of stuff. And then Randy lays the rules for a horror sequel. The body count is always bigger. The death scenes are always much more elaborate. More blood, more gore, carnage, candy. Your core audience just expects it. And if you want your, and number 3, if you want your horror franchise to become successful, never, ever, and that gets cut off. Because there's no way of really figuring it out. I would say don't be so shit like Scream 3 was, even though there were some good moments. So, Randy says that Mickey's a suspect. And then what about Hallie? There's always room for Candyman's daughter, which was actually good. And then Gail, possibly just because you're sweet on her. Please, this is me, Randy, the unrequited love of Sidney Prescott. I know all about obsession. And then it's like, oh, maybe if I'm a suspect, you're a suspect and all this. And they have a, Dewey and Randy have a nice, low verbal spat. Gail convinces her cameraman to stick around because her cameraman's like, wait, I read your book and your other cameraman died? No, I don't want to do this. And then sudden onset David Warner telling Sidney that she can do this play thing. And then we get masked people and sparkly things. Kind of remind me of the end of AEW Revolution. I'm going to keep harping on that even in movie reviews. And then she gets scared and spooked and all that. And what the hell is going on? She's scared of everybody. Tells Derek to just ease back. She needs to be alone. And he is understanding. And then Dewey, Randy, and Gail talk about who the killer is. I'm not interrupting anything, am I? You three look deep in thought. And Gail and Dewey go off to try and find out who's on their cell phones, even though they can't tell. Randy's on the phone, and basically, he says, what's your favorite scary movie? Dorm to Trip Blood, Splatter University, Final Exam, The House on Sorority Row. And then Randy knocks Stu and Billy. Says, oh, what a rat-looking, homo-repressed mama's boy. That was Randy's lines, by the way, not mine. Just want to clarify that. And then he, gets stabbed in the news van. And Randy doesn't make it, but he makes an appearance in Scream 3 because he made a tape. Because we have to, instead of maybe keeping the character alive, we just had to do whatever. Sidney then gets a message in the library from the killer. You're going to die tonight. The police can't save you. Oh, no. Cotton suggests an interview with Diane Sawyer while the detectives are searching the computers. And then he says, oh, maybe I deserve a little bit, a little bit of this. Like, you drag my name through the mud. Everyone thinks I'm a goddamn killer. And all I'm asking for is one little fucking Diane Sawyer interview to tell my side of the story. And then Cotton pleads his innocence because he gets arrested. Until you find me standing over a body with a knife in my hand, you need to treat me with the same respect. Which is true. They should. Gail says, don't do anything stupid. Oh, come on. You were so instrumental in my freedom. You're not having character doubts now, are you? And they're going to take Sid somewhere safe. That always works. And then Debbie gets berated by Gail because she's like, stop following me around. That's what you want to do with somebody that's clearly unhinged. Piss them off. But Gail didn't notice at the time. Gail and Dewey then agree to find the killer. They look over the footage that, the cameraman left and tapes. They go to the film, film portion of the school, like trying to break and enter, but they can't. They find the open door and go to the auditorium. It's really steep. I mean, man, the high school auditorium that I had wasn't that goddamn steep. The college auditorium that like the college that I went to, the auditorium wasn't that goddamn steep. So nobody could walk down that goddamn thing without almost falling down. And the killer filmed everything. And we get Gail and Dewey kissing and everything. And then Dewey's kind of running around a bit. Gail gets chased in the studio. Dewey gets stabbed while Gail can't hear him, even though until he screams on the microphone. And yeah, Dewey's clearly dead, except he's totally not. Like, that man has more lives than a goddamn cat. So, she manages to escape, barely, somehow. And then Sid and Hallie leave. Derek says, hey, I'll still be here. And then his frat brothers and sisters play a prank on him and hang him from some goddamn thing in the auditorium. Because why wouldn't you do that to somebody? Man, college is weird. And then the killer gets the cops for once. And he stabs one. The other one, it gets thrown out of the car, gets hit and onto the hood. He's trying to shoot the killer. And then the killer just runs into a bunch of construction. A pipe goes through the goddamn head and he's twitching and stuff like that, which is actually kind of a funny, cool gore moment. And then they have to crawl over the killer, Sid and Hallie. And Sid is almost removes the mask and then honks the car horn, but that doesn't wake up the killer somehow because he's really knocked out. And then he's suddenly out of there, and then Hallie gets stabbed because Sidney's like, I want to go see who it is, and Hallie decides to stand back there instead of standing right near Sid, instead of right by somewhere where the killer could get her, and so she gets killed. As usual, the black person died. Well, actually, the black person did die first in that one, but they also die 5th or 6th or 10th. I actually lost count about how many people got killed. So Cotton has blood on his hands because he found Dewey, and he's like, no, 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 I didn't actually do anything. And Gail's like, get away from me. And then she finds Debbie. She's like, the killer's Cotton fucking weary. And Derek is left hanging. From there, Sid tries to free him. Because the killer's like, I wouldn't do that. And then it turns out to be Mickey. He's got the head wound, so obviously he was the one doing the driving. And that, oh, Derek's my partner. No, he wasn't. Then Derek got shot. Because, of course, Derek got shot. Because he wasn't actually the killer. Because Sid's trust issues cost her here. And then it was, Mickey was like, I'm going to blame it on the movies. It's never been done before. Everybody on the, it's like, me on the stand, all this stuff, and it's going to be great. This trial's going to rock. And it turns out that, Debbie was Billy Loomis, Billy Loomis's mother. Because why not? Go back to Friday the 13th, the first one. One of the good ones. She was the benefactor. But then she shoots Mickey. There's not going to be a trial. It's like, well, my motive isn't as 90s as Mickey's. Mine is just good old-fashioned revenge. You killed my son. I mean, as absurd as she is, she's got a point. I mean, she does. She also doesn't, but she also does. And then Gail gets shot. Sydney basically brings the house down because isn't Mickey supposed to be dead? And she brings the house down doing all this. Like bringing the set down, from this place she was doing. Bricks are falling, all this stuff, and scary. Laurie Metcalf did a great job just overselling this. Like she was in over her head. Like she had this planned out. And then she was in over her head being in an unfamiliar location. And then she still gets a hold of her, though, because Sydney could only do so much. Cotton is here to save the day and has the gun, says, oh, bet you that Diane Sawyer interview is looking really good right now. And Mrs. Loomis even said, she sent you to prison for a year. I think, there's some kind of poetic justice here. And then he shoots her. And after Sydney has said, consider it done. And so she's down. And then Gail gets, brought up. Gee, Gail got more lives than a cat. And, the careful is when the killer comes back for one more scare. And then Mickey pops up and then gets shot by a couple guns. And Cotton's like, whoa! And then they shoot, I believe, Debbie gets shot. Mrs. Loomis gets shot in the head. And then Dewey is still alive because he had scar tissue. Because that's convenient, so he can be in the third one and not limp. Despite the fact he wasn't limping through half of this. And then Sid says to the news people, hey, talk to Cotton. He saved the day, so there you go. Yeah, a bit of a long one here, but the main reason that I'm doing these kind of long reviews for Scream is to illustrate that while the first one had a lot of really good shit, and yes, even some dated shit, this one just felt like by the third act, it started to run out of steam. And then the third one, oh boy, I'm going to be doing the third one here soon, and it's going to be something else. But overall, Scream 2 had more good than bad. It just also had some stuff where you're like, But what do you guys think of Scream 2? Let me know in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Retlin. I'll see you soon.